Good evening, everybody. I hope you've had a great week and an even better Friday. I welcome you to another live session organized by ScoreLeap. Today, we have with us Seema Parakkat from GMAC to give us exclusive insights of GMAT. Also, don't forget that one special lucky attendee will be getting the official GMAT guide for free today. I welcome you, Seema. It's great to have you here. How's your weekend and evening going?
I'm sorry. Hi, Ashika. I'm having a great evening because I'm on a live with all of you guys. So good to be here.
I'm so excited for our students to learn more about GMAT from you. Also, let me tell you a little bit about today's format. So, we took multiple surveys from our students and gathered questions that we have written down on chits here that I'll be reading to you as if our students were reading them out for you. I'm so excited to hear your insights on them and for our students to learn more from you.
Right. I'd love to talk about all of the change. Stop me if I'm like continuing on and on about it because I can talk forever about the GMAT exam. Obviously, this major change was actually announced last year, early 2023. And towards the end of 2023, about August, we opened up the registration for the new format of the exam. And in November 7th to be exact, we started the testing for the then we call what we then call the GMAT Focus Edition, right? So that was a short period of time until January 31st when we had the earlier version of the GMAT exist as well as a new version of the GMAT exist side by side. But Jan 31st, we sunset the earlier version and now we just have the GMAT exam. So there's no focus edition, there is no, I don't know, classic or old or anything. There's just the 10th edition, which was retired, and then there's the GMAT exam. So what candidates can actually look forward to in the new version of the GMAT exam is the quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and data insights. There's 21 questions in quant, 23 in verbal, and in data insights there's about 20 questions. Each section has a new score range of 60 to 90, and each section contributes equally to the total score range of 205, and the section score range is 60 to 90. But the good thing is questions have not changed, right? It's just that a lot of content has actually gone down, which means that the amount of preparation time that people had to put in has actually gone down. And also, if you look at quant, geometry has been taken off. I bet that all of you guys who are tuned in here and are pretty happy to hear that because it's a bit formulaic when it comes to geometry, isn't it? When you look at, let's say, the verbal reasoning, you just have two question types, which is like the reading comprehension and the critical reasoning. And if there was anybody who loved grammar, you will be disappointed because the sentence correction which tested you on grammar has been taken off. And for people who are thinking, like, looking at all of the questions in data insights, all of the fancy names that are there, if you think that data insights is difficult, it's not. It's just that it's testing you on your data literacy skills. So that's how the new format looks like, right?
So, let's jump right in. Our first question for the day is regarding the scoring algorithm for quant and DI. Even though I get one or two errors, scoring algorithm is heavily penalizing. Can you help me understand the scoring algorithm? I have given an attempt in the previous format already and I find it a little surprising.
One of the things that I want to actually put out there is when we actually changed the exam, we saw it an opportunity to make the algorithm better and more candidate friendly, right? Because at the end of the day, the main aim is to make sure that GMAT exam is fair and it's bringing out all of your abilities to kind of like deal with the problem solving, critical thinking, and your decision making skills and really showcasing to that to the business school. So one of the things that we did is we enhanced the algorithm or we improved the algorithm, you could say that. So while difficulty matching was there, there's a lot more things being considered in terms of item description, context, positioning, and a lot more. It is a proprietary algorithm, so obviously, you don't get the insight into the deeper workings or its mechanisms. But rest assured that it is an award-winning algorithm, which our psychometrics team has actually won the Bradley Hanson Award for education measurement. So you need to. I just wanted to lead with that to say that it's not testing you on a singular aspect of, okay, the number of questions that you got wrong. There's just like so much more to it than just the number of questions, which all of the things that I spoke to you about. So I just need, to clarify this. When people think that they're getting heavily penalized for this, or, just because they got one or two questions wrong, it's not about the number of questions. So I just wanted to lay it out there. What I would want everybody to actually focus on is the question types and the question format, and everything. Like, let's say question format kind of remains the same, but from a lot of test takers that I've heard actually take the new version of the exam, they did not find quant like challenging as per se, because right now, because the exam is just about 2 hours and 15 minutes, it has become a lot less taxing, right? So I think those are the things that everybody has to actually focus on. And there are certain aspects of the knowledge about the algorithm they really don't have any control over. But just to clarify this, it's just not the number of questions. Nothing is getting heavily penalized. I think it's very easy to actually see one or two situations and make a very strong general assumption, like we say that this happened to this person, so it must be happening to everybody. A couple of cases, maybe you might have come across like that, but that bases the entire exam itself. It's not like, I mean, unless and until you actually have like an entire big, quantum of candidates kind of like facing the situation for me to actually come and say that, yeah, this is a, problem that everybody is facing. So I think it's just like a case to case basis and not something that everybody actually faces. It's just about, how that person has actually gone through that entire section, of that exam.
Thank you for that answer. I'm sure a lot of students are now recontemplating how this works out for them. Next question. I have 7+ years of experience and plan to pursue my MBA for fall 2026. I will start prepping for GMAT. However, I've heard people say GRE is easier as it's mostly taken by students who are applying for MS programs. Is this a misconception? Also, is there any preference by the B schools?
When you look at general STEM designated masters, I mean, I would not say that no. I mean, GMAT, I mean, there's a reason it's called Graduate Management Admission Test. We are all about management education, right? So if it's a general STEM masters, I mean, obviously, I'd say yes. GRE is something that the what do you call, universities actually look at. But when you essentially look at business masters and when you actually essentially look at an MBA program, I'll focus on the business masters bit because that's what I think the person who asked the question actually leans towards, right? I think the big question comes here, that comes here is, do you want a scholarship, right? Because obviously, yes, GMAT is one of the eligibility criteria. It does. I'm not saying it's like a mandate. I mean, that you have to take this exam or the other. But at the same time, I think it's kind of like seen by most people that, the schools do see that the exam kind of showcases certain skill sets which are really relevant to the business schools. I mean, you'll see certain quotes from the business schools themselves about, how relevant they do see GMAT to be. So I think a scholarship perspective is a very important aspect to consider. I don't think anybody who's actually watching this right now is going to say that, no, I don't want funding. I'm sure that everybody wants funding in some format or the other. The other aspect, when I talk about why GMAT is always about, you are going to invest time, you're going to invest money, you're going to put in a lot of effort to learn something. GMAT, first of all, does not test you on vocabulary or, a very textbook kind of math or those kind of things. GMAT is all about your developing your logical abilities. And if you're going to spend money, time, and effort in, going through an entire exam, you should kind of like put your energies into something that you are going to use in your business education and which is going to really last a lifetime, especially in your career, because this is going to help you actually leverage certain skills and make sure that you perform really well. Because at the end of the day, for you to maintain job, for you to actually grow in your job, you need to have certain skill sets. So you're actually building the foundation for that with the GMAT exam. So which is why I always say that, even if there is a option of either of the exams, I kind of personally believe that this does best align for management masters.
Thank you so much for your insight. I'm sure our students have now realized what are the benefits of taking GMAT and what are the benefits of taking GRE. My next question: how important is a GMAT score in securing scholarships or financial aid at the top business school? I think you've already answered this question while we were speaking about GMAT and GRE.
Well, it's a part of the, numerous things that you actually have to do. And I think it's just one of the component, I would say. I mean, while I would like to say that it is the most important thing, there are numerous other things like, let's say, the essays that you actually put across, showcasing your motivation as well as your initiatives, showing a part of, who you really are and what you're really driven by. There are, let's say, your relevancy and progression of your work experience, your academic strengths, your recommendation that you've actually got from your, professors or, from your work, whichever is actually accepted by the business school. So all of these things together contribute to not only the admit, but the scholarships as well. So if you're kind of like applying for need-based scholarships, sometimes you may have to write additional essays kind of proving why, you have an amazing profile, but at the same time, why should the school actually fund you because you can't fund yourself? So I think there are various factors, but I would say that, when you are looking at a scholarship, it is really good to have a competitive GMAT score. So it puts you at a competitive advantage. So it's really, as I said, when you think about taking the GMAT exam, not only does it actually showcase the necessary skill sets that you need to succeed there, because obviously it has been shown to be a very good academic, predictor of your academic success. But besides that, it also shows your commitment going through that process, preparing for the exam, and taking that effort shows your commitment to the business school journey as well. So it definitely does play an important part, but in consideration with a lot of other things.
Another, is there any order of significance with respect to the sections I start with? Say if I start with verbal versus starting with quant, will there be any negative impact on the overall score?
No. All of the questions, like for instance, like your first question is restricted to start at a medium difficulty level. So, the way you choose your sections or the order of the sections that you come up with, they don't really have a major impact on any impact on the total score. So please feel rest assured that you're always going to start a section with a medium difficulty question.
Our next question for you is: how do Indian B schools look at GMAT for admissions over CAT? Is the college option for Indian B schools limited if I take GMAT?
Well, when you think about Indian business schools, definitely I would say that you will find a diverse range of business schools using the GMAT exam. I mean, sorry, using the CAT exam for their flagship MBA programs. That's probably much higher than GMAT in terms of the Indian business schools. But we have over 200 business schools that are, almost 200 business schools that actually use a GMAT exam for their flagship MBA programs. Hopefully that will continue to actually grow. So GMAT exam is AICTE ratified, which means that it is accepted, for the full 2 year PGDM program. I'm just saying that, I think when you look at it from the broad perspective of how many schools in India, I definitely say, I mean, I have to be honest with you guys, it's definitely the CAT. But in terms of making sure you have options open in India as well as abroad, then definitely GMAT is your solution to go, because you have, as I said, you have Indian School of Business, you have SBJMR, you have XLRI, you have Exam Bhubaneswar, you have, Masters Union, you have a lot of, I mean, TACME, KG Samay, I mean, I can go on, right? So you have a lot of business schools you can actually consider.
Another question for you is: with Trump winning the elections, do you think there will be any effect on the post MBA situation?
I think it's too early to kind of like talk about anything, but I would probably want to talk a bit about the past. I mean, I
Right.
think we've had a knee-jerk reaction in 2018 when, um, there were a few statements made, and then a lot of things were blown out of
Hmm.
proportion, and I think people inferred a lot of things in a wrong way. And but then it turned out that people, those who are actually looking at higher education and going through the right channels, rather, I should probably say that, because it's easy to kind of like want shortcuts. Like
Mhm.
we have like a lot of optionality, and then what are the other ways that I can actually somehow get to another country and see if I can find work there. I think those are the kind of people who might actually be affected, people kind of looking at shortcuts. Because if I'm not wrong, in the past also, those who, let's say, take an exam, they go through the right channels, go to really good business schools or universities, they were never affected. I think it
Right.
was actually conducive for people to go through the right channels, and they want skilled laborers. I mean, the underlying factor there has always been that skilled laborers are actually welcome. So I feel, but the remaining aspect of in terms of policies and other aspects, I feel we shouldn't jump the gun. And I
Mhm.
don't think we should jump to conclusions about, yeah, this is how it's going to be because he's come, we need to expect the worst. I mean, we just don't, I don't think that, it's fair to actually say that, or, kind of see few articles and say that this is what it is. I feel we need to kind of like take it slow in terms of jumping to conclusions. That's it.
Right.
But I genuinely don't think that, students and, if you have those kind of aspirations, that you should kind of put a breaker to it just because, somebody came to power there. So.
My next question is, does the test get adaptive in between sections, such as after verbal, if I choose quant, will my quant starting point or difficulty level be adaptive based on my verbal performance?
Obviously, the previous section is not impacting your next section, right? It's not going to make it more difficult. So I don't, as I said, it's not, the GMAT exam is question adaptive, not section adaptive. The first question of every section is going to be, constrained to a medium difficulty level.
My next question, does DI have equal weightage as the rest of the sections?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, yes, it does. I mean, as I already mentioned, each section is of a score range of 60 to 90,
Mhm.
and all three sections are equally considered to contribute to the total score.
My next question to you is, if you go back and edit an answer, and if the edit is also incorrect, does it have any further negative impact on the score?
No, I mean, so question the adaptive nature in terms of, let's say you answer the first question, when you move on to the next question, if you answer the previous question correct, the next question gets harder. Well, that's called difficulty matching, right? So difficulty matching is still a part of the way, the algorithm works. But as I said, at the same time, there's various other factors that's also considered. So one point to note here is that adaptiveness is, obviously happening, which is why you are able to actually change the response only after you complete your section and then you come back and then you're able to actually change it, not in between, right? Because you still have to answer and only then can you move on to the next question. So while, having going back and changing a response to a positive response, has a positive impact, have changing it to a negative answer, it does not have like a, major impact as some would consider in terms of the overall score. Yeah, the adjustment is actually done right towards the end. The
Mhm.
algorithm actually follows its due course. There's just one thing I want to actually talk about, and again, everybody needs to actually keep in mind to not leave questions unanswered towards the end. So in the newer format of the exam, one of the other additional feature is also, let's say, question review and adapt feature. I mean, question review and edit feature, right? Not adapt. So which is what we are just talking about, like going back and
Right.
changing responses. So that has been given with the primary intention to also make sure that you're not getting stuck because of time management issues earlier on. For instance, let's say you're at question number five or question number six, and you realize that you're actually going beyond 2 minutes. What you can actually do is use this feature to bookmark that question, make an educated guess, answer the question, because let's imagine you ended up taking a lot of time on this particular question, and you went through other questions. Obviously, you wasted a bit of time. and you're left with few questions towards the end. You leaving those questions unanswered is going to be penalized higher than you getting questions wrong. So one big point for everybody to actually note is that you do have to make sure that you answer all of your questions and do not leave any questions unanswered. And also understand that question review edit feature is actually going to help you manage your time in that regard, because you have the freedom to actually come back to specific questions towards the end, isn't it? So don't spend all your time there. So that's one aspect. Second thing is that please don't keep registrations for your last movement. Like in the sense, if your deadline is tomorrow, don't keep your appointment 1 or 2 days earlier or like 3 days earlier, because you're like, oh, you know what, GMAT score is going to come in 3 to 5 days. So I'm just going to I get the fact that you love an adventure, probably not GMAT to actually experiment that with, right? So try to make sure that you give enough space and try not to kind of hit it so close home to the deadlines. And the moment you start your prep, I always advise you to actually register for your exam, because I'm sure that your teams would actually tell that you need to this is the plan that you need to follow. This is where you're at. This is how you need to actually go about your preparation. If you don't have a clear plan, or if you try not to follow that plan, or you don't register for the exam, it's very easy to procrastinate and kind of like keep pushing it. Maybe I'm not ready yet, and keep pushing it for tomorrow and tomorrow. And, 1 month become 2 months and 6 months and a year and then 2 years. And you never know. And then you're never actually going and taking the GMAT exam. So do make sure that when you enter your prep, you register for the exam considering the timeline. You will get a bit more serious about your preparation. And trust me, it's all that seriousness that's required to push yourself to take the exam and get to the score you want to. The new changes have made sure that the exam is not challenging as it was. It's really made it a lot more stress free, especially from a time point of view. Imagine having to write an exam for almost 3.5 hours, and have to go through 4 different sections, because that was what the exam was earlier. So a lot of people who have taken the newer version of the exam have actually said that the experience has been actually much better. People who have taken both the versions of like earlier version also. They said that when they moved in here, like they felt it much more comforting, at least from an anxiety point of view. So that's the general advice I have for everybody.
Right. Thank you so much for that insightful, exclusive GMAT session. Again, we're ScoreLeap hosting a live session with Seema Parakkat from GMAC about exclusive insights on GMAT.
Yeah, and thank you to the entire ScoreLeap team for actually bringing you on board. I had the most fun, and yeah, looking forward.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening. And to our audience watching, you have Seema's info. You can text her, drop her your messages anytime. Connect with her and see how you can better your GMAT experience. Again, we are ScoreLeap hosting a live session with Seema Parakkat from GMAT. Thank you for attending. Have a great evening and a great weekend ahead.